Welcome to the Power of Love show, sponsored by the DDJF Foundation, where we shine a light on loss and grief and how it impacts our lives. We are here to provide hope, resources, and a community so no one feels alone in their grief. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Power of Love, sponsored by the DDJF Foundation, where we shine a light on loss and grief and how it impacts our lives. I am TJ Jackson. And with me is my eldest brother, Taj Jackson.
Hello.
We are live, of course, right now on November 25, 1:07 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Yes, we record out of Los Angeles, but we are live on Facebook and YouTube, so you could be watching us anywhere on this globe, pretty much. Or you could be listening to us on our podcast. And that is available on all major streaming platforms. Thank you for those of you who are tuning in that way. And that was it. I think I mentioned the bulk of. I'm trying to do these intros just without a script. How did I do, Taj?
I can tell. No, it went well. It's very natural.
Good.
I give you B+ because I want you to get better.
Okay, so you want me to stay with it. All right, I appreciate that. But one thing we do need to say and make sure we say correctly is our disclaimer. Exactly. And that is, we are not licensed therapists. We are just ordinary people who have experienced loss in our lives. We've been impacted by it and we've learned from it. If you need professional help, we urge you to seek it and to find it. Do not just rely on us. Taj Jackson. I will start with you, my friend. We don't do this we don't talk about it too much, but I guess it's good to know if anything exciting or anything interesting happened in your last week in your life.
Yeah, I'll save the big thing for you, but basically Taylor's birthday was on the 21st. My daughter, she had a two-year birthday, and
Tosh, 2 or 3?
Huh? She's 2.
Okay.
Yeah, she's ahead of her time.
Okay.
No, she's 2 though. She's only 2.
Okay.
And,
okay.
That was a lot of planning and all that stuff. So I'm a little still getting, we kept it very intimate and small with masks and all that stuff, just playing our part. But it was fun. It was just, very close family in terms of like very.
She's getting so big. It's
immediate family. Yeah. Yeah, no, she is. And it was good for her to see her cousins and
nice.
So long. But, then you get paranoid and all that. So that was it. But yeah, she enjoyed it.
I'm going to just quickly go into the other big portion, I think, of our week. Definitely of my week is, but Taj, as you mentioned as well, we lost my best friend's mother last Friday.
Yeah.
She passed away unexpectedly. And, for me in particular, I know Taj, you knew her as well, and she was amazing for you as well. But for me in particular, she really was a second mother and someone, my best friend throughout my childhood. And when my mother passed, she was there and was always. And what's so cool about Miss Ellen Miller is I never can picture her mad. There's certain people who seem to be able to just always have it together and always understand that life is precious and can project positivity and love and smiles, and it's contagious. And, she's someone that will dearly be missed. And like I said, I love with all my heart and from, I've talked to Drew and done all that, but to anybody who knew Ellen, the family or friends, we are sending you guys so much love and strength during this challenging time for all of us.
Yeah, she amazing woman, and in terms of just the positivity factor, as you said, because obviously your friends became my friends. And, because as age went and stuff, and Ellen was someone that was always just so welcoming.
Yeah.
And it was such a huge loss, and it was weird because Taylor's birthday was after that, and so it kind of still put a damper. I tried to celebrate Taylor. That's why if people were wondering why I didn't seem happy about Taylor's birthday, that was why, because it kind of puts things in perspective in a way.
And here's the thing, it's especially, we always talk about this unexpected versus expected passings, and they're all very challenging. And the one thing the one thing I want to express to everyone is, just because you may be, at an older age, it's always going to be difficult losing people you love. I'm in my 40s. Drew's in his 40s. He didn't lose a mother like we did at 16, but that doesn't mean it's not equally as painful or difficult or challenging. And that's something that I think we should, and I'm happy we're able to talk about it here, is that there's no proper way to feel or proper way to handle things. And everyone's different and everyone goes through different pain. So just have some compassion to anyone who loses a loved one, regardless of age. Anything else, Todd, before we start our show?
So we had the Zoom funeral yesterday, which was my first Zoom funeral, which was something I hope is not the norm, just because it's hard because you can't comfort the person. You just And I want to say something. I was actually impressed with, obviously the service was great, but I didn't expect a virtual Zoom funeral to be that, I don't want to say that effective, but I don't know. I wasn't expecting, like you said, probably because I was expecting there's a value in being able to console but it was a great service. It was a beautiful service, and you felt the love, and I was actually happily impressed with how Zoom funeral service was. Yeah. So, all right, Taj, we are going to move on to our guest. This is the third and final show of a series we've done on mental health. And it's been fabulous. It's been fantastic. And, I think our community's gotten a lot out of it. And I've learned a lot from it. So this next guest, let me do a proper introduction for him. Today's episode of the Power of Love Show is the third and final installment. And with more than 15 years of experience in education as a teacher, school counselor, school psychological examiner, and school administrator, Dr. Russell Hyken. There's some PhD, EdSP, MA, LPC, LCMHC, NCC, founded Educational and Psychotherapy Services, LLC. It's a bunch of letters, but it means he's a licensed guy that we are not, right, Taj? Yeah, I was going to say, I know a couple of those letters.
But Russell specializes in psychoeducational evaluations, ADHD assessments, individual and family therapy, interventions, and residential treatment, and boarding school placement. Russell assists families by providing comprehensive services to help families improve emotionally and students improve academically. Determining why somebody is not reaching their full potential and understanding the sources of conflicts is the first step to success. Through a comprehensive intake process, Russell Hyken provides therapeutic and academic direction. This collaborative effort allows the client to be fully engaged in the process and to make permanent and positive life changes. Dr. Hyken feels strongly about spreading messages to parents that help in the tumultuous child-rearing times. He writes articles for various family magazines and often appears on regional television news programs and radio shows discussing teen issues. His book, The Parent Playbook, one I got to go check out as a reader,
yes,
and his Parenting Survival speaking series are aimed at parents of teenagers, offering a variety of strategies to assist parents with understanding and communicating with their teenagers. Love everything I just said. Please welcome to the show, everyone, Dr. Russell Hyken. And I say it that way to make sure. Dr. Russell, am I saying your last name correctly?
You're close enough. Hyken, like hiking up the mountain, but you're good.
Hyken. Okay, cool. Well, first of all, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being the final installment of our mental health series. I truly appreciate it on behalf of my brother and our entire foundation and community. So thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me. And Taj, enjoy that child while she's small.
I
She's
know.
gonna be a teenager, man, and you're gonna be like staying up late at night.
I know. I definitely know. I am. I'm soaking it all in now.
Mine just got to college for the first year, and it's like, oh my gosh, we gotta like wait till he's home. We can't sleep.
He's learning that. I mean, he used to go to bed extremely late and wake up extremely late, and now, you know, sometimes he beats me up in the morning, and he's getting a beautiful welcoming of parenthood. So it's fun to watch.
It's a great time.
All right, Dr. Russell, I have a question. So we always admire anyone who goes into the field of work aimed at helping other people. I always like to ask this question to our guests: what inspired you to go into the field of mental health, and specifically for teens and families?
Well, you know, it started out, I was a English teacher. So I spent my days teaching kids to write, which is a super valuable thing to do. I always felt that those that communicate the best are the ones that are the most successful in their personal and professional lives. But being a school teacher means you got to continue to go to school. Like, they don't let you just sit in the classroom and do nothing. And I just sort of gravitated towards counseling, and actually got the job as a school counselor in the district that I was working prior to becoming a counselor, and thought, this is great. You know, it's so cool that, 9 a.m, I might be meeting with a kid who's having a major problem at home. But then, at 6, 7 o'clock at night, he's shooting the hoops with the basketball team. He's the star of the school play. It's like, to know kids on that level, to know, the trauma that they're experiencing, the problems that they're having, the growth and developmental issues they're facing, but then to watch them go out and be a star, like, that's so cool. Never have I ever matched that since then. That school counseling job was a great job, just to really understand kids. And that's really where I felt like that's where I feel comfortable. Let's hang out with teenagers and young adults. And because they are, as cliche as it is, man, they are the future, sooner than we think. I'm looking at the kids I used to teach now, and I'm seeing their kids. So
yeah. So I have to ask you, and I have several questions for you. And as a parent, as we discussed earlier, I have a bunch of kids in a bunch of different ages. Taj has one, hopefully more coming along in the future. But I'm intrigued by your message. You have a message that says more discussions, fewer arguments. Can you please let us in on how to attain this goal of more discussions, fewer arguments?
And that really is sort of my mission statement in life. And let's even expand that past our teenagers and our kids. Like, that should be our goal with our parents, with our spouses, with everybody, to be talking more and arguing less. But let's just sort of focus on teens, since that's what we're talking about. So many times during my career, both as an English teacher, then as a school counselor, and now I see parents make innocent mistakes that just create argument. So, your son or daughter walks in the door, and you hit them up with something that they maybe did wrong, or, maybe they got a bad grade on a test. And the second they walk in the door, you kind of sort of spontaneously say something that just sets your kids off. These are the things we need to avoid. Or, maybe your kid does something wrong, and for some strange reason, and I do this, I'm guilty of this thing I'm going to tell you I do, I lecture my kids. All right. And Taj, you will lecture your daughter, and I'm sure TJ, you lecture your kids. And when I lecture my kids, I'm going to do it. I'm a parent, man. That's my God-given right to lecture my kids. But it's a really bad parenting strategy. My kids' eyes rolls, and now my kids are old enough where they can actually tell me my lectures back to me. So I'm like, so let's just avoid that. So really, it kind of came down to, it's like, well, how do we make things productive? How do we move those conversations down the table? So the first thing I like to say is avoid the spontaneous discussion. Don't hit your kids up when there's a problem. If there's something you want to talk to your kids about, or anybody, give them a bit of a heads up. So something to the effect of, hey, you know what? You didn't do very well on that English paper, or, how's the studying for your test going? So, you know what? Hey, after dinner tonight, let's spend 5 or 10 minutes talking about that paper, talking about that test, talking about how, you need to clean up your room. So give them a heads up that it's coming. Put some time limits around it, and that's really important. Time limits are extremely important. And then and tell them, like, hey, give me your thoughts on it. Like, we're gonna have a talk about it. So tell them to go sort of metaphorically prepare. I don't expect them to sit down and write out notes, but they know what's coming. And if you do that enough, what's going to start to happen is your kids are going to start to come to you saying, hey, you know what? I got a problem. Can we spend a few minutes at dinner or after dinner talking about it? So now you're having more discussions and you're minimizing the arguments. And that's not to say the arguments are going to go away, but you're providing a safe environment. It doesn't have to be after dinner. That could be, you know what? I'd even plan some times in there to talk with your kids, you know, a stop at Dunkin' Donuts on the way to school, you know, and just spending 10 minutes sitting there. And you don't even have to have anything on your mind, but giving them the venue, the space and time to talk is how you're going to promote discussions versus arguments.
Great. Thank you for all of that. And I was going to ask you, as a parent, what, and for all the parents out there, what would be your, I was going to ask this, and I think you kind of answered, but feel free to elaborate or add to it. But I was going to ask you, what do we get wrong? What is the biggest thing that you see that could be an easy fix that we just seem to miss? And I know you just talked about the importance of discussion.
Yeah.
Any other one?
Don't nag. Don't you shouldn't have to ask your kids 6, 7, 8, 10 times to do something. It's all in the way you ask. It's the problem. But also when you nag, I mean, we're all smart, right? We're all where we are for a reason. You guys got kids and you're successful. What do you think if you nag your kid like 12 times, the 13th time, they're finally going to do what you want them to do? It's just not going to happen, you know? So we need to figure out how to, again, have discussions, but also to say things in a way that promote productivity versus conflict. So that would be something like, you know, when your room is clean, feel free to go out tonight. You know, it's giving them the conditions. It's telling them what you want and what they get in return, and doing it in such a way that it doesn't feel punitive. It feels collaborative. You know what? You know, the dog needs to go for a walk. Do me a favor, take the dog for a walk, and then, you know, go out and have a great time tonight. You know, things like that.
Great. You've written over 100 impressive and helpful articles. Yes, impressive and helpful.
Yeah.
I glanced through. I haven't read all, but they're great topics. They're nice, simple reads, but very helpful. They can be found on laduenews.com, LADUENEWS.com, and searching Hyken, HYKEN, in the search bar. You've written about everything from maintaining healthy eating habits amid this pandemic and how to support your college student and reduce virus-related stress. I am going to ask you, because my diet has been horrendous during this pandemic, and I know it's mostly for, you know, how to support, you know, your child and their eating habits, but please first tell me how to help me rein in this diet during this time. And if there's any extra you want to give for teens or children, please let us know that as well.
Yeah, man, I feel your pain. I'm sitting in my kitchen doing this, and I can smell dessert cooking for tomorrow. So I'm already with you there. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't even manage it. It's really about thinking in advance as to what you're going to eat, not way in advance. But as parents, we need to buy healthier snacks. I mean, there's like some basic things that we can do. But it's preparing healthier meals. We don't want to overemphasize eating correctly because we don't want to create anxiety in our kids for, you know, the way they're eating. But I think if we're providing those options and having discussions and then involving kids in cooking, even, and then the greatest thing about the pandemic, not the greatest, there's really nothing great about it, but one of the nice benefits that I've seen is that, you know, we all cook at the house now. You know, my kids cook, I cook, my wife cooks. I'm not just out on the grill anymore, which is always my thing. So it's getting your kids involved with meal planning healthier things. But you got to have indulgences. You know, you can't bypass the cookies. It's just sort of putting limits around it and making it not a big deal, you know. And if your kids are younger, you can certainly do portion control for them. You know, here's a piece of pie, you know, and not give them seconds and say, you know what, one's good enough. If you really want it later, come talk to me. So it's just sort of about getting them those things. And then just getting out and being active, I think, is a big part of it too. Kids will want to be healthy once they start to feel healthy, and talking about how much better you feel when you eat healthy, again, when we're having discussions, can be really helpful.
Nice. Yeah. Patty has a great question. She wants to know, what do you think are healthy consequences for adult children who are living at home? I mean, it seems like it's happening more and more where adult children are living home for various reasons. It seems more difficult to land on your feet nowadays with, you know, with prices and things being so expensive. So you know, and I know for adult children, they don't like to be told what to do. They like to have their independence and feel like an adult, but sometimes they still need consequences if they're in your home. So what do you advise for Patty?
I think, Patty, before the kids even walk in the door to live with you, you got to put down some boundaries. This is what it looks like. You know, it's hard for somebody in their mid-20s to accept that there's got to be some type of curfew. And it's not because of anything other than, as a parent, you will never sleep if your kids are under your same roof and you don't know where they are. It's one thing when they're out on their own. So I think having those discussions, but also natural consequences, can quite possibly be the best motivator to acting correctly. So, for example, if your, child leaves the room a mess, you know what? Close the door and don't look at it. And eventually they're going to have to clean up that mess. Don't do their laundry. I can't tell you how many times I hear parents say to me, well, if they would just bring their laundry downstairs, I'd do it for them. So sometimes I just go get it. I don't do those things. So natural consequences are always going to be the best. And then, if it doesn't work out, you're the parent. Show them the door. It's, help them out. But I think what I'm finding is that kind of framing it the way we talked about earlier with those discussions, I think asking them what they feel is appropriate. So giving them the power, because a lot of times kids are going to be more harsh and strict on themselves than their parents are going to be. So collaboration, discussion, natural consequences.
Love it. Great response. Thank you for that. I'll be honest. I haven't really had too much of an issue with this, but I love what you said about the curfew. Never thought about that. And you're 100% right. When a child's living in your roof, you worry about them. So, even though they may be in their mid-20s or wherever, they have a duty and a responsibility to alleviate their parents' fears by being respectful. So I love that.
Yeah, and along those lines, and this is one that I do get pushback from a lot of people, but I'm a big believer in the apps that track where you are. So whichever one, I don't want to endorse one in particular, but we use them. And there's so much value to that. And that, if I wake up at 1 or 2 in the morning and my kids, I haven't heard them come in, and I can pull up that tracker app and see he's asleep in his bedroom. Yeah. Great. Or even, with a significant other, I do travel for work. And sometimes my wife, I forget to call as I get back to the hotel, and she'll say, oh, he's asleep. He's in the hotel. I'm not going to bother him. And she'll give me a hard time about it in the morning. So I think, what I would encourage everybody to have the tracker apps on their phone. And it's not, and explain to your family members, and parents should have it too. It's not about me monitoring where you are. It's about me, when I'm anxious or wanting to know if you're safe, that I can pull that app and see where you are. And it's a lot less intrusive than me calling you. So, nice. And if you have kids that are younger and they do have like a reasonable curfew, like 11:30, I think kids should be home by curfew, but you can pull up the tracker app. And if they're at the stoplight getting dropped off, 200 yards from your home, that's fine. Like you don't need to bother them, but if they're 20 minutes away, eating an In-N-Out burger, then we got a problem.
Yeah. Casey Johnson has a great question. How do you rein in the preteen attitude?
Yeah, just tune them out. No, again, I think it's, I hate to keep going back to that mantra. You got to talk with them. But first off, the preteen is going to have attitudes. But Casey, remember, you are the parent. And sometimes, as much as I promote discussions and fewer arguments, sometimes as the parent, you just got to say, hey, I never thought I would do this. I'm the parent. This is how it is. When you got kids of your own, you can change the way it is. But if you continue to do this, if you continue to do this, this is what the consequence is going to be. And sometimes if you can get into it, if you're finding a consistent issue with the child, start having the conversation in advance. When you do this, this is what the consequence is. So when they start to, if you say to get off that video game at 10 o'clock and they're still on it at 10:15, they know what the consequence is. It's okay for them to say, can I have 5 minutes to shut the game down? That's reasonable, but you can't have a half an hour to shut the game down because you knew 10 o'clock was it. So if they know in advance that, hey, if I'm on past 10 o'clock, that means tomorrow night I don't have video games, and I've agreed to it in advance, and I've agreed to play by the rules. You just kind of say, here's your warning, give them a warning, and then do it.
Yeah, love it. A question from Belen. She asks how to act with a child who is bullying another classmate. So if my child is actually the bully, is there anything besides, or I guess I'll let you answer because I think the answer is going to be a discussion. But what do we do as parents when we find out our children are bullying other classmates?
Yeah, that's got to hurt, and that is, again, that's something where I think that I would want to point to specific examples of what you've heard and hopefully be able to validate that, because you want to have something concrete to talk about. I got a call from such and such's mother that you did this. So let's first off get them to try and own that behavior, and then try to get them to maybe step into what's it like if they're bullied, and even have conversations. And we've all seen it. We've all seen at times where somebody has bullied our kid, or you see a bully situation on TV, but look for opportunities to talk about that and talk about how that feels, and keep that conversation going. And then even take it a step further. What do you do when you see somebody being bullied? How do you get involved in that? How do you remove yourself from that situation so you're not part of the problem as well? So it's just, again, it's ongoing discussions, but letting them know how that feels. And sometimes kids, and it's typically younger ones with their brain development, it's just they make impulsively poor decisions. Good kids make impulsively poor decisions all the time because they're developing. So they need to learn how to slow themselves down, stop, think. And then the most important thing, learn how to apologize sincerely.
Yeah.
Nice.
How do you apologize sincerely?
Well, it starts with, it's not a yes, but I'm really sorry, but you did this to me. That's not a good apology. I'm really sorry that I upset you. I can see what I did was really wrong. I statements, I wish I wouldn't have done that. And if that happens again in the future, I'm not going to do it, or this is what I'm going to do to help you. So make it an I statement, make it about how I feel, not about, well, I apologize. I feel bad that I hurt you, but you shouldn't have done that. It's like, no, it's all about me when I make the apology.
Yeah.
Love it. You in your various articles, over 100 of them, you're very candid and open about your own family life and experiences with your wife and 2 children. Do you feel being vulnerable in that sense helps people better connect with your message and content? And
Go ahead.
As I said, do you believe that transparency and vulnerability connects with people at a deeper, more profound level?
I really do. So I've been writing articles for years, not just for Ladue News, but I used to be a Fox News local correspondent guy talking about parenting issues. I've got my website. So I've been writing about these things for years. And there comes a point where, we can talk about these generic things, anxiety, depression, very important topics. But as a parent of 2 boys, I'm going through everything every parent's going through. Just because I am the self-professed teen parenting expert doesn't mean I'm perfect or that I don't have problems. I have a heightened awareness of it, and again, I'll make mistakes and apologize. But I think, it's what's happening for me. So I did a whole series, or over the last, I said I have a freshman in college, and starting in his junior year up through the time he got to college, I wrote a lot about the college process. And just sort of what I started noticing was observing things. And so it was really cool, as my son was actually bringing me topics to write about. So I loved that. I'm like, hey, Dad, this is really bugging me. I go to a family gathering and every parent's asking me, well, what am I doing after high school? You go into college, you get a job. Where do you want to go to college? All these things. And I'm thinking, well, that's a really annoying question. He doesn't want to answer that. So it's really, and if I'm feeling that and I'm experiencing it, then other people out there are too. And so I think that's really the reason why, is that, it's not so much it's a snapshot into my life and I'm being vulnerable. It's real. I'm writing about real issues. And, if you look at my book or you look at my things, I don't tend to write about super heavy topics. I write about what you guys are going to go through. You got a 2, 3-year-old, you're going to be going through all this stuff. As I was joking with you before, you're going to be up late at night worrying about her. These are real. These are things that everybody experiences. So I always joke, throw that magazine article on the coffee table, or maybe on the back of the toilet. It's a 2-minute read. Hey, how do we argue about driver's license? How do we fix that problem? Curfews. Oh, my oldest child's meanest to my youngest child. What do I do about that? Just normal life stuff. So I think it just really personalizes it and stuff that everybody can relate to.
Now, you mentioned your book, that you write a book.
Yeah.
I even said it in the intro. That's how bad my memory is these days. But let's talk about your book, The Parent Playbook. Where can we find it, and what can we expect from it?
Well, wherever books are sold, so Amazon, Barnes and Noble, it's all available online. And really what it is, so I wrote that book designed to be for exactly what I just talked about. 3-page, 4-page chapters, really short chapters that address a specific problem. Yeah, if you look in the back of the book, I do talk about serious issues like depression and anxiety and eating disorders. But really what I wanted people to do is the stuff that I write about for the magazines. It's like, this is real life. All those parenting self-help books are great, but sometimes I just want a quick little snippet of how do I deal with my kid's a picky eater, So it doesn't need to be, we don't need to, just something to spur the conversation. What I really like, what I really enjoy is like when the wife or the husband reads the article and then gives it to the other, significant other and says, hey, this is some good advice. So like every now and then my wife would be like at a teacher conference and she'd be asking these great questions. I'd be like, where'd you get those questions? Those are great questions. Like, I read your article. Like, all right, And so I think that's what I want that book to be. That's what I want my articles to be, something that you share amongst, even the whole family, if you got older kids, just kind of makes life a little bit simpler.
That's great.
What do we do as parents for crazy time right now with the pandemic and, schools open, not open, they're all, we don't know what the future holds for even us. So what do you suggest for parents that have teenagers or students that are, going through some anxiety bouts or really struggling during this time?
That's a great question. And kind of tying in with your theme of your show, when I started learning about your show, I'm like, we need to look at this time as a period of grieving and loss. And a lot of people don't look at it that way for our teenagers because, hey, we're healthy, hopefully. And if you're not, but kids are missing out on their development at a very significant point in their life. So if we're just staying with the high school years, even to some degree, the pre and teen years, your identity gets formed during these years. Kids start to pull away from their families and develop independent thinking for better or for worse, hopefully for better. And so what the pandemic has done is that's taking a lot of that away. I can't go, and if my interest is sports, I can't go hang out with my sports teammates who have similar interests. If my interest is theater or newspaper or whatever, those like-minded individuals that I would connect with, I'm no longer able to connect with on a regular basis. It's socially distanced, it's via Zoom. So our kids are suffering more than we think. And, we think of the pandemic in more of these bigger terms on an individual level. So I think we need to recognize that they're grieving, that they're missing out on developmental milestones, even as something as, it seems so unimportant as homecoming. We're in homecoming season, the big football game, not happening, or if it is, we got to watch it on, video. We don't get to go there. They're upset and it doesn't seem like a lot, but to them, it's their world. So let's at least recognize that and talk to them about it and give them permission to mourn that loss and give them the space and the time. And I also think we need to be more flexible than we are in the past. I used to be very rigid about some of our household rules, even as the teen parenting expert, like structure is really important, but these days, if my kid's doing what he's supposed to do, the job of a teenager, make good grades, do something that makes you interesting, and be nice to your parents most of the time, it's a win, right? So if you tell me that you're done with your homework at 9 o'clock at night and you want to play video games till 11 or 12 and sleep till 8 or 9 the next morning because class doesn't start till then, it's okay. It's really understanding it, but you got to have structure and boundaries. So it's not like the rules go away, but just be a little more flexible with that. And then going back to the discussions versus arguments, sit your kids down, have a discussion, prompt them, but then let them do the talking and you do the listening. Because like I said, they'll lay the boundaries out for you in most cases unknowing because they're just happy to be asked.
Love it. Casey has another great question. How do you teach your kids about peer pressure and being a leader and not a follower?
Casey, that is a great question. And kids are faced with peer pressure. And so one of the things that kids need to do is look at their peer group first off. Are they hanging out in a peer group that is pressuring other kids to do something? Because that's not really healthy. And if they're feeling pressured into doing something, they really need to look at their group. And so that goes, well, how do you find other kids to hang out with? Well, again, it's going back to those clubs and activities, which are a little limited now, to figure out, well, hey, you know what, I like this, and I'm going to go hang out with kids that have a similar interest. But kids should not be subjected to peer pressure. And the biggest thing is that, to have some stock answers. So figuring out what they're being peer pressured about. So it's like, hey, you're being peer pressured to drink and you don't want to drink. no, I don't want to drink. You know what? It's just, it's just something that doesn't work for me for whatever reason. But talking with your kids about some standard answers to those types of situations that they would be in, and then know that, you know what, they just walk out the back door and give you a call and they'll come and get them.
Yeah, love it. Taj, is there anything else? I know we're coming up on time.
No, I'm just taking notes.
Taking notes, right?
I find it fascinating. Teenagers are fascinating in general because it is that weird time age group that they are kind of discovering themselves, but it's a toss up. Yeah. So kind of counting blessings now.
And they still want time with you. They may not openly admit it, but you know what? I can get my kid to, walk around the corner and grab a burger somewhere. Usually anything with food is good for a teenager. They do want to hang out with their parents. They just don't tell you.
Yeah.
Here's one more question from Isabel, which I like. What do you advise when a teenager does something wrong? You tell them and they apologize nicely, but do it right again. The next minute or so, they're back at it. What do you advise for us parents when it seems like our message isn't connecting?
What jumps out to me about that question is again and again and again. Something's missing the mark here. So does that child have difficulty managing their impulsivity? Is there something more, internal going on? Is there something, mood disorder related or ADHD related that they can't seem to control that urge? And then what is their secondary gain? Like, what are they trying to gain out of that behavior? What's missing that they feel the need to continue to do that over and over again? So it's really trying to understand the behavior. And once you know what the behavior is, then certainly talk with your kids, but also keep in mind sometimes, if this is something that goes on over and again, maybe you need to be seeking some professional assistance. Start with your school counselor. They're a great resource. They're there for your purposes. And if they can't help you, they probably got a lot of local resources that are really strong. So that's my ad for the school counselor that I used to be, but if they're doing things, then you probably need a little extra help than that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, going to a therapist or a counselor should be like going to the dentist. You don't really want to go, but once you get there and you do what you're supposed to, you feel a lot better about the decision. And I'm not trying to throw my dentist under the bus here, but we don't want to go to the dentist, right? But we go. I mean, we feel good about it. So, get that therapist you can check in with.
I think you're right on with that, and I think I'm hopeful that we're coming off that stigma where going to the therapist is seen as a negative thing. I'm cautiously optimistic we're moving in that direction where it's going to be seen as going to the dentist and something regular, because I agree with you. When you can discuss and talk about things with someone that has experience handling it, you tend to come away with a better game plan and some growth. So I love the way you phrase that.
Yeah, and I think like looking at the therapist as somebody who's there to help you literally throughout your life. Therapy doesn't have to be every week. I will get calls from clients that I saw in high school. They're now in college and they're thinking about, like, I'm stressed out about getting a job or going to grad school. 2 or 3 sessions, give them some coaching and some therapy, let them process their feelings. So it doesn't have to be ongoing. Find a therapist that's willing to do a few sessions here and there, get to know him, value him or her, maybe one that'll even, now we're doing video conferencing, which is, it's unfortunate that it took the world to become like this for that to be accepted, but it's a really nice way to connect with people when it's hard to find time in your schedule to do so.
This is one question. I think I know this question. I think many will know it, but I want you to answer this one, if you don't mind, Dr. Russell. Should parents apologize when they are wrong?
Well, you're smiling because the answer is yes. Yeah. But again, parents are guilty of apologizing poorly, just like teenagers are. Remember, everything you do is a model for what your kids are going to do. They are always watching you. When you talked about eating unhealthy, if I'm sneaking down to the refrigerator in the middle of the night and eating a whole piece of the whole cake, my kids are going to do it. If I'm apologizing incorrectly, apologize, but also tell them how you're going to fix the problem. So I am sorry that I did that. My hope is the next time I get that way, I can control that behavior, and this is what I want to do. So yeah, apologize when you're wrong, because that's the difference between a good parent and a bad parent. When you do something wrong, own the mistake. Tell your kids what you learned, move on. The problem isn't the issue, it's how you fix the problem is what's important.
Love it. All right, Dr. Russell, we are there on time, but as I
Right.
mentioned, unless Todd Jackson, were you going to say something? You look like you were going to say something.
No, I mean, that last point really brought up in terms of like I know with mom in general, like I went through my first breakup, like, you know, and it was really devastating to me, but my mom didn't understand how much like your first love is in that way, because so she thought, oh, you'll get over it in that way. And then once she started seeing how much it affected me, she came back and apologized and really said, I'm sorry. And I still to this day remember that. And it brought us closer together. I felt like I could talk to her now, as opposed to where she just, I don't know if she didn't, I know she understood, but she kind of,
well, Todd,
with it as much. Yeah.
I think also the fact that she ended up marrying in her first love, and so she
yeah.
couldn't relate to breaking up with the first love. So
yeah, and so that I do remember that, and it was so instrumental to me that she apologized. That I was like, okay, you know, it felt more like a team member as opposed to someone that didn't understand. Yeah,
and sometimes all you want is just a shoulder to cry on. You
yeah.
know, and parents forget that sometimes. Sometimes they don't want our advice. They just want to tell us how they're feeling and just sort of let you be the parent and cry on your shoulder. So
yes, I still remember that apology. That's what I want.
Great.
That's great, Todd. All right, Dr. Russell, as I mentioned before we even went live, we like to close our show where we give our guests up to a minute to talk about whatever they want to talk about. It could be your favorite movie, your favorite book, your favorite meal or dessert, whatever you want to talk about. It could be something you're up to. Let's hear it.
Oh, well, you know, kind of what I want to end with, if this is okay, is not so much a personal issue. I could talk about all that stuff, but I actually want to look at the list here. I didn't even know you were going to ask this, but I got a couple of things I always like parents to keep in mind. So when you talked about my speaking series, this is something I end every speaking series with. I think this is a great way to end. So I'll let you guys judge. So number one thing that a parent should do: maintain a positive attitude, even when times feel really desperate. Like I said, your kids are watching you. Number two, protect and guide your children in their development. Sometimes you do have to jump in and tell them, don't do that. It's not safe, and be the parent. Create an environment of love and compassion. Seems like you guys are doing that with your families from what I'm hearing. And this is my most important and my favorite thing to tell parents. No matter how badly you want to share your wisdom, sometimes your kids aren't going to listen. And remember, sometimes the best lessons are learned the hard way. Let your kids make mistakes and be there to pick up the pieces. If you can accept your children for who they are and the challenges they face, they will come to you with their problems until there are no more, until they have kids of their own, and they'll bring their kids' problems to you. So just accept your kids and let your kids make mistakes. And if you've raised good kids, they're going to come and tell you about it. And don't be judgmental. Just help them. Be loving and accepting.
Love it. What a way to end.
All right.
I love it, Dr. Russell. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
Taj, anything else before we close, before I wrap?
I love this. This is great.
You fasten your seatbelt and remember this episode, Taj. Bookmark it, because
you can get the parent playbook command. Just shoot me a text. We can chat.
So for everyone watching, if you want to learn more about Dr. Russell Hyken, go to www.teenparentingexpert.com. Dr. Hyken, on behalf of my brother and our entire foundation and community, I just want to thank you for joining us, sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us. It's meant a lot. And that is it, everyone. Unless there's something else either one of you want to say, I'm closing the show.
Thanks a lot, guys. Keep bringing music to the kids. I like that foundation mission. So
thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, everyone. We will see you guys next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Thanks for tuning in, and take care of yourself. Stay safe and love